Hello, class. Today I got a special treat for you. It's Katie Bell.
What up, Eagle Rock?
She is my daughter, and because she is born of all this, she is obviously a history master.
100% genius.
She's taking like a push or something in high school. Some of you will make it there someday. Some of you, it might be 3 years away. I'm just saying, do your homework, kids.
I've learned nothing.
That doesn't help.
It's true.
Oh my gosh. This is
Okay, we're talking about sectionalism.
Here, look. Yes.
Yeah.
There we go.
John Brown.
John Brown. See, I taught her that. Sectionalism. So it sounds like what it is. The United States, big country, shape, all over. And there's a point where the country quits kind of thinking so much in terms of the country and what we have in common and like bringing people together. Oh.
Kumbaya.
And then there's a point where we're like, hey, y'all's weird. Screw you. I'm dealing with what I got to do for me. Okay? And there's going to be three main sections that we want to discuss. We got the North, we got the South, and we got the West. Okay, the F thing doesn't work for the West, but North, South, and West. They all have different kind of economies, different kind of needs, different kind of political thoughts. So as we go through this sectionalism unit, please try and think about these three things. Cool?
Cool.
How many things, Katie?
3.
Magic number. Thank you, Schoolhouse Rock. All right. Whoa, scary. The sectional crisis. So apparently the sectionalism's not going to be great.
No, it doesn't really sound too nice.
It's going to be a crisis. Let's see what happens.
Crisis.
Look at this essential question. Was the Civil War inevitable? No, the South could have got their butt in line without us kicking it, but I guess they didn't, so they got worked.
Anyway.
If you think way back to when the country formed, there was a lot of unanswered questions, maybe kick slavery. Like we didn't really deal with it then. And then we never really dealt with it ever, and we continue to not really deal with it. So this whole question about the Civil War is, does slavery become such a big deal that we kind of have to deal with it? Or are we just going to resolve it? Is it going to die out? And there's a point where that could have gone any of those ways. Could have happened. It could have just died out. It did in a lot of other countries. Good job, other countries.
Bad job, America.
Bad job, America.
Avoiding your problems one day at a time.
So here we go. In the antebellum area.
What is the antebellum era?
The era from, 1800 to 1860. It's also right there, Katie. Read.
Oh, wow. Duh.
All right, so now realistically, we're talking about this time frame after the War of 1812 until the Civil War. So there's a lot. We've got manifest destiny going on. We've got the Industrial Revolution going on.
Let's go cotton gin.
Lots of these things we've already talked about have happened. But now we want to get down to how do these different things affect the North, the South, and the West. Okay, here we go. King Cotton. King Cotton is very much the South. As we talked about, because of the invention of what?
Cotton gin.
Eli Whitney. This made cotton from a not so profitable crop because it took a lot of labor to a super profitable crop that took a lot of labor. It was ideally suited for the slave plantation system that was already in a lot of the South. The only way to restrict the amount of money you could make by planting cotton was plant less cotton. So the more you planted, the more money you could make. Most of your southern plantations switched to cotton. They just ran with it. Let's do it. It's where the money's at. Cotton is also very, very heavy on the soil. It takes a toll. So as the South uses up all the land, because cotton takes all those nutrients out of the soil, there's going to come a point where the cotton ain't growing there none too good. So if I want to still plant millions of acres of cotton and my millions of acres aren't doing so good, what do I got to do, Katie?
Steal someone else's millions of acres.
Or buy them, or conquer them, or annex them, or trade for them. But yes, you need more land. That's going to be a problem. How does King Cotton affect the North, Katie?
Well, I don't really know.
Oh, God. These high school teachers. So in the North, one of the biggest manufacturing setups is about textiles. So
Yeah.
they're spinning cloth and making clothes and making
Oh,
fabric.
yeah, so it helps them, right?
So even though cotton's booming and it helps the South, it indirectly really helps the North too. They're making a lot of money on this thing. What about the West? How does cotton affect the West?
Well, the South's going to try and, expand into the West because they need more land.
Okay. And if we look, I'm going to point. It's not going to work. If you look kind of along that line where Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, if you keep going west across Arizona, New Mexico, the southern part of California, cotton will grow in all those places. So when the South sees the West, they think, hey, we can
Money.
plant more cotton. And they also want to make sure that this balance of power, here we have free states, here we have slave states, they're kind of even. We want to keep them kind of even because if the West does something different, then the South loses power. So if we can expand slavery into the West, that's good for the South.
It's good for the South, bad for the slaves.
No, yeah, and it's terrible for the slaves, no matter where it goes. All right, good talk. Let's see what's next here. Can I just do this thing? Yes.
Ooh, fancy.
Okay, on the northern side, we're talking about population explosions. A lot of that from immigration. Okay, it's not like, hey, people in the South only have 2 babies each and people in the North have 35. That's not a thing. But what is a thing is lots and lots of people come into the North for immigration, the main ports up there in New York, Boston, and they stay there. And so you have higher populations. Your cities of 500 to 1 million, look, there's none in the South. Look at this giant city of New Orleans. It's got maybe 150,000 people. But all the big cities, by these colored circles, are up in the North, not in the South. And in the West, if you could see, they're smaller too. You're going to have a pretty good size cities in California after the gold rush. But up until then, there's nobody out there in any big city either.
Yeah, the West is brand new. It's a little baby part of the country.
Little baby. Okay, so we've got workers who can do big projects like railroads, like canals. So you've got the manpower to do that kind of thing up there. And those kinds of things happen. Look at these cute little railroad tracks.
Aw, how cute.
There's a lot more railroads in the North. There's much fewer in the South. And there's only a little bit in the West. And anything out West is mostly to try and get connected
To the North and South.
to the North and South. Exactly. Another thing that's going to matter later when we get to the war, the North relatively early kind of standardized what size to make the rails, what size the trains were going to be. That became standardized relatively quickly. And the South, it never did. So when we get to the war, any train from the North can go anywhere in the North. But in the South, that's not necessarily true. And that's going to cause some problems. Foreshadowing alert.
Oh!
All right. So sectionalism, these differences in economy, they're different, but we can work it out. Let's compromise.
Yeah.
Let's shake on it. We can work through this.
COVID friendly.
We can work through this. I wonder how. Okay. Big compromise in 1820, the Missouri Compromise. Now, Missouri in 1820 is the frontier. It's way out west. That's about as far as you go. Everything past that's like Indian country, and they don't know what's going to happen out there. Now, the Northerners and the Southerners wanted to keep everything even, Steven. Let's have equal, then we don't have to actually deal with things. Yay!
Avoiding our problems one day at a time.
So when it comes time to make Missouri a state, well, that's going to be a problem because we're even Steven, and now we're about to go plus one.
That's not even.
It's not even no more. So the North didn't want any slavery. If you remember way back when we did the Articles of Confederation and the Northwest Ordinance, we talked about how all these new expanding areas, they're going to be slave-free. That was a deal we made way back before the Constitution. That was the understanding. And why did the South agree to that, Katie?
Because it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, don't know crops grow up there like that anyway. Little did they know they could grow all that corn up there today. But back then, nothing they grew there. So they didn't really care. Missouri, though, we could do some stuff there. I don't know what's going to happen.
Make some cotton.
Oh, here's what's going to happen. Missouri right here is going to be a slave state. Yay, slavery. That doesn't sound right.
That's not a yay moment.
And Maine is going to break off. Maine all used to be part of Massachusetts. They're going to be their own state, Maine. They're going to be a free state. So we have balance of power.
Ooh, even Steven, once again.
And then we're going to make this little line right here, 3630. I don't know. Maybe the Mason-Dixon line. I don't know. Anyway, this line right here is going to say everything below this line, it can be slave if it happens. And everything up here ain't going to be slave. So if you look at that line, all of this area right up here was already not going to be slave because of Northwest Ordinance. So you didn't really give up nothing there. You actually got Missouri to be a slave state. So if you're the South, you kind of got over on this one maybe. But you took a chance because look, if we extend this line and we keep coming and we keep coming, then this little bit of area could maybe be slave, but there's a lot more area up here, which is supposedly going to stay free. Foreshadowing alert. Do you think there'll be problems with that?
I feel like there'll probably be problems with that.
But you know what? In 1820, we did it.
Woo! Compromise.
Moving on.
Avoiding our problems one day at a time.
Okay, let's talk about another issue. Tariffs. Tariffs is another fancy word for what?
Taxes.
Okay, here's how a tariff works. Look, America makes cloth. It costs $4 a roll.
Oh, gosh.
The British makes it. It costs $4 a roll.
Fancy.
But we tax the British stuff when it comes in. So the British cloth costs $5 a roll. So who am I going to buy my cloth from?
America. That's
America,
cheaper.
it's cheaper. Okay, now today we buy a lot of stuff from China because it's why cheaper. It's cheaper. And one of the last administration's big deals, we're going to put some tariffs on Chinese goods. That way, American companies could compete. So, I mean, you could compete by make stuff cheaper, but we don't enslave the Uyghurs, so I don't know that we have a fair chance against the Chinese.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about modern day slavery. Let's go back to this. You put a tax on stuff coming into the country, you're more likely to buy American products. If I make products in America, do I like that?
I really like that.
Yay! Money. I could buy my stuff cheaper. What could possibly be the downside?
Increased taxes.
Well, this doesn't tell me what the downside is. In the South, I don't love it. Okay? Because I'm buying everything anyway. All I'm doing is buying stuff. And now I'm going to have to pay more one way or the other because stuff I might have bought from the British, like the British might say, hey, instead of just giving you cash, I'm going to trade you goods for your cotton. Oh, well, now they're being taxed and it doesn't really work for me.
Costs more.
I'm not sending anything to England except
Cotton?
Cotton, just cotton. That's it. That's all it's going there. And so this doesn't bring any revenue to the South. Helps the North. They can sell more stuff, even to the South. South doesn't really get anything out of it, so they don't really like it. The West, kind of in their own world on tariffs. They don't really like tariffs because they're not a manufacturing place yet. We're not making stuff in the West.
The West is little baby part of the country.
Okay? So you've got two sections of the country that are kind of anti-tariffs, and you've got this one section that's kind of pro-tariff, but the one section's where all the money is and where most of the people is.
So that's not looking too good for the South.
Sometimes democracy works that way. 2/3 of the country is kind of against tariffs. 1/3 of the country, which happens to be maybe
the biggest part of the country,
2/3 of the population, says, so what? And away we go. Because democracy doesn't always work, kids. Anyways, moving on. So what we have in the 1840s, Manifest Destiny. Going coast to coast.
We're the best.
Look, we got Texas. Texas became a republic. You know, the day they became a republic, they would have been pretty happy to be like, hey, maybe we should be America.
Woo.
But we said, pump the brakes, Texas. Pump the brakes. You've already got slaves in Texas. That's one of the reasons the Mexicans was so mad at you. Because you already got slaves down there in Texas. They got rid of slavery a while ago. Way to catch up, America, or not. So you want to be a state, but if we add big old Texas as a state, it's going to be what kind of state?
It's going to be a slave state.
That's not a balance of power. No balance. No balance. Okay? And then later on, we finally do annex Texas because we pick up Oregon. Thank you.
Woo-hoo.
Now we're balanced again.
Hey.
But we pick up all this other stuff after we whoop Mexico in a war. I don't know why they want to fight us. We're America. Thank you. But oh gosh, the lights just went
wait,
out.
it works though.
It'll work. So after the war, the Southerners start thinking, hey, maybe slavery will just keep on expanding. It'll be okay.
Yeah. That's
Not only can we maintain the balance, maybe we get ahead because look, we got some more land. I wonder what's going to happen, Katie.
I mean, I feel like that line's going to come in at some point.
Uh-oh.
Seems like a big deal.
Okay, 1850, California's like, hey, we're here. We want to be a free state. But if you remember that map a long time ago, that line, half of California's below that line.
Cali ain't a free state.
Cali, a big old state. So what are we going to do?
Huge.
What are we going to do?
Split the state.
Well, I mean, they still talk about that today. I'm from California. I don't like to admit it. Yeah. So the Southerners don't want any more free states. They want more slavery. The Northerners want to keep slavery out of all that new stuff.
Got to maintain the balance.
And they want to protect the runaway slaves. Because it turns out they think not only does slavery suck, but if you're a slave and you get away, finders, keepers, losers.
Weepers.
They think that, hey, you done lost your slave. He's a person now. Sucks to be you, South. That's going to lead to some problems.
Yeah.
Here's what happens in 1850. It's time for what?
The compromise.
Compromise.
Hey.
Ooh, the compromise of 1850. That's a big one. So
Are we
here
going
we
to get
go.
a bigger line?
California. They're coming in as a free state.
Whoa. That throws off the balance, though.
Hold on.
Okay.
We're going to get something for this.
All right.
Okay. Slave trade in Washington, D.C. There was actually a slave market like 2 blocks from the Capitol. People come to see Washington, D.C., and they got to pass by one of these great big slave markets. It didn't look good. That doesn't look good. So we're going to make that go away. Slavery is still legal in Washington, D.C. We're not actually solving that problem, but you can't have a slave auction 2 blocks from the Capitol no more.
Deters tourists.
Okay? We're going to make it so the people in New Mexico and Utah, and I ain't going to lie to you, I don't know why they thought this would matter in Utah. Utah ain't trying to vote for slavery, but whatever. Hey, instead of agreeing with what we said before, that this line right here is where slavery could be and above that nothing, let's make it more democratic. Let's vote on it. Everybody can vote. Forget what we said before. Let's just vote on it today.
Because it's going to help us better.
Anytime you see popular sovereignty, that mostly means let's vote on something that we already decided a long time ago, but now we don't like that much.
Yeah, pretty much.
That holds true today mostly too.
Pretty much.
Okay, but we're going to here's the trade-off. You got a free state, but the South, we want our dang slaves back. If they get up to the North, they ain't free. That's our property.
Your property that you lost.
So they're going to send people, bounty hunters, basically, to come snatch up the slaves.
Slave snatchers.
And it turns out that the slave snatchers, they were not very discriminatory about who they took.
Oh, they just out here snatching people.
They would snatch some random black people and be like, well, you're probably a slave. I'm taking you back. That's probably not going to end well.
No, not really that good.
Man, South, it just don't look good. What are you thinking down there?
Oh, we got some pictures.
Oh, gosh. Here's some people that mattered. Okay, John C. Calhoun. He's the guy who's like, not only is slavery not a bad thing, it's an awesome thing. It should be everywhere. God wants us to spread slavery far and wide.
I feel like that ain't going to turn out real well for you.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of John C. Calhoun. He's a little bit out there. Here we got Henry Clay, who's got this great political experience as being a man of compromise, and he's well respected. He's trying to, keep the Union together. He's right there.
So far, all these compromises have failed. So
I mean, they just have new ones. So they didn't fail. It's just time to re-up.
Yeah, just remake our decision.
And Webster here is trying to get some stuff done, but then we're going to have Douglas and Stephen Douglas and Lincoln debates. Foreshadowing alert. There's going to be some more stuff with these guys. All right. We're going to talk more about these guys in a bit. Okay, 1820 to 1850, the differences we've already talked about. Economics, who used slaves, where slavery was going to go, new states from out in the West, how are they going to come into the Union? And now we're going to talk a little bit about abolition. There's a growing sentiment in the North of people who go, hey, it turns out slavery is not only bad, but we're going to end it for all of y'all. We're taking it away. You can't have no slaves no more.
John Brown.
Thank you, John Brown. Hold on. John Brown moment.
Oh, can't really see him that well,
There
but
he
he's
is,
up there.
John Brown. Okay. This is the worst video ever. All right. So we've managed to compromise through all of these things so far, but it's going to get a little harder. There's going to be some problems. Okay? as abolitionism grows and people are more and more anti-slavery, not just expanding, but existing, then every time there's more people coming trying to be a new state, it's going to be a problem. And now the question of slavery has moved from a strictly economic system to now we're going to look at this in moral terms.
Peace, morality.
Okay, and the people in the North who don't really have slavery anyway are going to be the big ones selling, hey,
It ain't
God,
right.
Jesus, whoever, don't want you to have slaves. It's wrong.
More about abolitionists.
We got that fugitive slave law. It is not good.
I'm going to snatch some slaves.
So Northerners would form vigilante groups. And when they found some black slave or some slave catchers trying to, snatch the black people, they'd be like, nope. We show up with our pistols or a big group and say, you can't take them.
Fight.
And they would try and rescue people, sometimes who never were runaway slaves, sometimes who were.
Get them up to Canada.
But they're saying, hey, if they're up here in the North, you can't come up here and be doing your slavery thing. It ain't going to work.
Which breaks the Fugitive Slave Act. So.
Right. So technically, when they intervene like that, it sounds good, right? Morally, yeah. Good job.
Ooh.
You're breaking the law, though. And the South's going to be like, what gives?
South ain't real happy about that.
What?
Hold
Looky
on.
here. Colored people of Boston, you're cautioned because people are going to snatch you.
Snatched.
They're going to get you. So they're trying to tell you, you got to hide, you got to be ready. People are going to snatch you up. It's a little bit, hide your kids, hide your wife. They be snatching people up in here.
Yeah, a little bit. The Underground Railroad.
Okay, Harriet Tubman, one of my favorite Americans. Thank you very much. She was a slave. She escaped. She went back several times to help other people escape and make their way up to the North and later on up to Canada. Because after this fugitive slave law happened, the North ain't good enough. They can still come get you.
They got to flee the nation.
How sad is that we got to hide people all the way up in Canada? That's not good for America. I'll take my hat off. That makes me sad.
Moment of silence. I'll
Dang Canada. All right. Anyway.
put my hat back on. I like that it jiggles.
I don't even know what to say to that. Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote this book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. It sold more copies than the Bible for 2 years. Huge sales all over England, all over America, lots of places in Europe, and it inspired people to think differently about slavery, to actually care, when maybe if you lived up in the North, you didn't have no slavery, you just didn't even think about it. Oh gosh, here we go. Here we go. In 1854, we're going to do the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Now, Kansas and Nebraska were above that line, 3630.
That means free states.
Back in the day, that's the line. You can't have no slavery up above there.
Nope.
Oh, well, guess what?
Kansas doesn't really like that, and they're kind of going to do their own thing, and it's going to cause a lot of problems.
But first, we're going to get rid of all these compromises. You know what we said before and already agreed to? Forget that crap.
Screw you.
No, we ain't doing that.
I ain't about that life.
So let's look. Here in 1820, free states are in the gray, slave states in the gold, open to slavery is in red, and closed off to slavery is in the green. So if you look at this first map, man, slavery is kind of trapped. But after we get Texas, we've got some maybes. We've got some maybes. And after this Kansas-Nebraska Act, now instead of doing what we already said we were going to do, what we already voted on through our congressional representatives,
Throw it out the window. We don't want
everybody
it.
gets to vote on their own thing, no matter what.
Y'all do you.
We do us. What could possibly go wrong?
People are bad people.
Let's see what happens. Northerners are mad because, hey, this just said you're going to expand slavery where we already said you couldn't. And the Republican Party, the grand old party, go Elephants, was formed in 1854 and became committed to free soil, which means ain't no slavery on this ground. It ain't happening.
No.
But unfortunately, the slavery people, they're better at being bad than the free soilers are at promoting good in this particular case.
Shocking.
So what they do is, where's the map at? Hold on. Just look at this map right here. So here's little Missouri. Yay. Oh, I'll do it this. Now you can see it. There's Missouri. And they're going to let Kansas vote on what they want. So thousands of people in Missouri just go to Kansas for a day. Just long enough to vote.
Because something about the popular sovereignty is it was about the people residing in that territory. It didn't actually matter if you were born there, like if you were a legal citizen there.
You just showed up that day. Hey, I like it here now.
Technically, you were a citizen there for that day.
So not only did all these people from Missouri go there, but they're trying to scare off people from voting who are free soilers. There's actually some riots. Some towns get burned. And the Missourians are much better at being bad than anybody from the north is at being good. I wonder if there's somebody who could come in and try and even the score. I don't know. Foreshadowing alert.
I don't know.
I wonder what happens. These are just some little pictures of how, hey, they're coming to vote. Well, we're going to tear down the thing so you can't cross the river. We're going to scare off all the people that are here to vote.
Destroyed the whole popular sovereignty system. It's super corrupt now.
They actually had two governments for a while in Kansas. They had a slave government. They had a free government. They both claimed to be the actual government. It was messy. And they had thought, not like, hey, you're bad, but like, let's shoot people. Okay, now there's no compromise to fix this. And so how Americans change as they start to kind of change their parties, this free soil Republican ideal starts to take hold. You're going to see what becomes the current Democrat-Republican ideal is going to kind of slowly build between now and the end of the Civil War. We're not going to have any more Whigs or any more Federalists. So
all these other like little tiny parties are pretty much just going to get dissolved, and there's going to be the rising of the two major ones.
All right. So sectionalism was a little bit, we compromised. Sectionalism got way bigger. It really focused on slavery, and people are getting violent. And now, hey, we're fighting for our side no matter what. No matter what. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to have to die. Okay? Oh, gosh. Dred Scott.
Dred Scott decision.
You know, there's times I love the Supreme Court. I think it's a good idea, except when they're wrong.
And this is one of those times when they're just flat out wrong.
Flat out wrong. So there's a slave. He moves with his master to what at the time is a free state in Wisconsin. He says, hey, I'm in a free state. Therefore, I am free. They move around a little more. The master's like, no, you ain't free. Use property. Just because we went on a vacation doesn't mean you're free. And the court could have decided that, but instead they decided,
you're a slave.
You don't even get to come to court. Court's for people. You property. You don't even get to come to court. Thank you, Supreme Court. You suck. Not a good one.
So, yeah. That was not a highlighting moment in American history.
If you think about when the Cherokee went through the court system, went to the Supreme Court, they kind of got what they should have got until my boy Andy Jackson said, so what? So there's another similar example where people who were being subjugated tried to use the court system. Because in America, the law is supposed to be number one. Well, when a slave tried to use that same law, they just said, you're not a real person.
You're not a real person.
The law's for people. So we can't have like a shovel up here causing a lawsuit. We can't have a wagon wheel. So how are we going to let a slave have a lawsuit? That's not a good day, America. Not a good day.
So not only was Dred Scott still deemed a slave, but he was also deemed property. And then the decision also ruled that all slaves were not people. So they all of them. So they couldn't have any of the same rights as people.
I bet that goes over really good in the North.
That did not help their cause.
Okay, so we talked about those. The Northern abolitionists were furious.
People were mad.
Here's little Abraham Lincoln. He's out there in Illinois in his log cabin. He says something like this: a house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure, permanently half slave and half free. Foreshadowing alert. He right.
Right.
You're going to have to pick.
John Brown.
John Brown. I waited all year for JB to show up.
Oh, gosh.
So John Brown, he helped on the Underground Railroad. He actually raised money to free slaves and transport slaves and get them up to the north. But he didn't feel like it was enough.
So he did some other...
Things got a little shady. You know, there's a point where he's trying to do things legally, and then he feels like things are completely out of the control. We haven't talked about Senator Sumter getting beat half to death on the floor of the Senate yet.
Yeah, that wasn't cool.
the fugitive slave law gets passed. That guy gets beat up on the floor of the Senate, and John Brown goes from somebody trying to work with the law to screw it. These people are plumb crazy. Guess what?
I'm taking the law into my own hands that happen to be holding a gun.
I can be crazy too.
And he was. John Brown was full and crazy.
John Brown rolled into Kansas with some of his friends, and he found some Missouri types, some pro-slavery people in Kansas,
and went off.
Chopped them up. Chopped them up old school. Sharpen your swords, boys.
Yeah.
More on that when we write our John Brown essay. But then he has this idea, okay, I got to say, it's pretty old school. This is some gangster stuff, like Sons of Liberty stuff, if you really think about it. He decided the way we want to do is go capture a federal arsenal in Virginia.
Okay, big old building full of guns owned by the government.
If you remember the Revolutionary War, this was the thing, right? Let's go hit the arsenal. Let's take the stuff. Let's get the cannon from Fort Ticonderoga and use it against our enemies. Back then it was the British.
If you don't have it.
So then it was a good thing, but now he's going to roll up on this arsenal with a whole bunch of pikes, sharp sticks like spears, and try and use those plus the guns he steals. And his goal is to roll around Virginia farm to farm and arm the slaves. And they're going to kill their masters and anybody in their way, and they're just going to march through the South.
Uprising.
Big old, I'm Moses, I'm setting my people free, but instead of having the Red Sea, we're going to make the rivers red with blood. It's pretty gangster.
Except killing is still wrong.
I mean, sometimes, allegedly. At any rate, he goes to start a slave rebellion, and he's got big dreams, he's got a good plan, and not that many people show up.
Turns out slaves don't really want to just go around killing their masters because they know it's not going to turn out very well.
They're afraid.
And they're not trying to take the risk.
And there's a little problem, too, that we got some weird-looking guy with a beard from the north, some white dude telling us, hey, let's grab some guns and kill some whitey.
Yeah, also, slaves don't really want, like, white people bossing them around. That's kind of their problem to begin with.
There you go. So there's a lot going on here. And John Brown, he's not that good at life, right? He's not good in business. This raid on Harper's Ferry was kind of a failure, except the one thing he's great at is dying. Gangster level dying. Jesus level dying. He's out there making himself a martyr, and he dies and becomes way more important in death than he ever was in life. It's not even close. He becomes a symbol for the North. He becomes the doggone boogeyman for all the South.
South was afraid. They're like, hold up. If the North is going to come over and start raiding arsenals, that's kind of a problem for us.
Yeah, so here we go. John Brown, executed for treason. First American. Good job. Way to be number one, John Brown.
Woo-woo.
And he says this, I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood. Oh, man. Foreshadowing alert.
Woo-hoo.
That blood is not far away. So these sectional divisions become increasingly powerful. The West is kind of a side character in a lot of this. It's North and South. It's what they want the West to look like the North or the South. And it is about to get vicious. And the time for negotiating, the time for compromise.
No.
No, we can't even get people in the same room to talk anymore. And if we go back to our main question, hey, was the Civil War inevitable? After some of this stuff goes down, it really feels that way.
Yeah.
And Lincoln, who we'll get to in another unit or two, that's the straw that everybody says in the South. If that guy becomes president, we out. We're out. That's as much as we can take. And it turns out in America, we're like, oh yeah, you can show up. We can annex you. We can make you a state, but you don't get to leave.
Yeah.
So here we go. That's it for sectionalism, kiddos. Thanks, Katie. Good job.
Bye.
This is a really long video, but I hope you learned a
long.
lot. I'm going to put up an A-push one by somebody with talent, too. So hold on for that. See ya.
Bye. John Brown.
John Brown.